welcome to my world. Welcome to cityworldradio.com, City World Radio, and we've got an amazing show tonight. This was a sad week in Greenwich Village in New York City because a landmark institution called Cafe Vivaldi it was like a cultural, artistic, musical, conversational salon run by Ishrat Ansari and his beautiful daughters, Mariam and Zehra. And they're just an amazing family, the mom and their mom, Rafat. And just amazing to have the opportunity to talk with Zehra Ansari tonight. And we will be talking about the Cafe Vivaldi, about the crazy, nonsensical landlord situation in New York City, and about the need for cultural salons in New York, and the passing of Cafe Vivaldi. And in the meantime, let's just talk about the music, because music is what it was all about at the Cafe Vivaldi, and that's a lot of what I'm about. So it's a beautiful, beautiful, stellar day in New York City, crystal clear, and great beach day if you didn't have to be in an office the way I did. But here's what we heard. The musical medley, as you know, is based on songs and cuts that are based on which composers were born today, or they have some kind of symbolic association. So first, of course, we heard my theme song, Moonlight in Vermont, the Stan Getz version, which I just found out is one of Zehra's favorites. You like Stan Getz?
I do. I love him.
I'm glad we played that theme song. Then we heard Reggie Workman, jazz and bop double bass player influenced by Coltrane. His birthday is June 26, 1937. That was called Summit Conference, which is ironic since we just had a summit in Brussels, controversial summit. Then one of my all-time favorites of forever in soundtrack land, from the movie with Henry Fonda, Jane Fonda, and Katharine Hepburn, On Golden Pond. Dave Grusin is the composer, and that was the soundtrack, On Golden Pond. Dave Grusin, born June 26th, 1937. Then we heard the gorgeous singer Lena Horne, born June 30th, 1917, with Harold Arlen's Stormy Weather. And the orchestra, we had two orchestra leaders born on June 26th. Richard Malpe, born 1914, with the Richard Rodgers tune Hello, Young Lovers. And Sid Lawrence, a band leader, born June 26, 1924, with that beautiful ballad, The Moonlight Serenade. Moonlight again, Moonlight in Vermont. And it's coming on to the full moon in a couple of days, and I love the full moon. So we love our moonlight songs. Then, in honor of both his birthday and Ishrat's love of classical music, that was Claudio Abbado, composer and conductor with the London Symphony, born in Milan, and he was born June 26, 1933. We heard a little bit of Brandenburg Concerto number 1 in F major, Bach's Brandenburg Concerto. Then Billy Davis Jr., singer from the Fifth Dimension with Marilyn McCoo. He was born June 26, 1940, with You Don't Have to Be a Star. I remember that song really well. Then Larry the Mole Taylor, rocker from Canned Heat, born in Brooklyn in 1942, June 26th. That was the Mole. That was, I don't know the name of that song, actually, but that was Larry Taylor. And then we had, in honor of Zehra loves Brazilian and bossa nova and Brazilian music, and that was Gilberto Gil, beautiful Brazilian singer with Eu Vim de Bahia, and he was born June 26th, 1942. Gorgeous, right? Mm-hmm. Love the sound. Then we heard Georgie Fame, an English R&B and jazz singer and keyboard player, born in Lancashire, England, and that was Georgie Fame, born in 1943, June 26th. Then Rindy Ross, rock vocalist and saxophonist from Quarterflash, born in 1951, June 26th, with Harden My Heart. Then the great Chris Isaak, American rock singer-songwriter with his iconic Blue Hotel, born June 26, 1956. Then again, another icon, Patti Smith, the American rock vocalist, born 1957, June 26th, with Because the Night. And then we heard Elvis singing Are You Lonesome Tonight? Not because he was born June 26th, but because that was the last song he ever performed on June 26th, 1977 in Indianapolis. Aww. Are You Lonesome Tonight? Great crooning, right? And then we heard Harriet Wheeler, the English pop singer from the Sundays, singing Summertime, which is very apropos since it just turned into summer. She's from the Sundays, born in 1963. Gretchen Wilson, the American singer, born 1973, When I Think About Cheating, June 26th. And then the unbeatable Ariana Grande, born June 26th, 1993, born in Boca Raton, Florida. And that was her famous No Tears Left to Cry. I also want to wish my niece Becca Wolf a very happy birthday. She's in South Korea, and her birthday is June 26th also. So we got a lot of June 26th going on here. Also, we have our weekly fun birthday list. Non-musicians, we have Violette Szabo, French World War II secret agent, born 1921, June 26th. Frances Rafferty, American World War II pinup girl, dancer, and actress, born in 1922. And Milton Glaser, the American designer, born 1929, June 26th. Let's see, the rest are pretty much... Oh, no, Derek Jeter from the New York Yankees, shortstop, born 1974, June 26th. And some June 26th holidays, some fun ones. It's Beautician Day. It's National Forgiveness Day. So we have to forgive. Important to do that. It's National Canoe Day. This would be a great day on a lake with a canoe. It's National Chocolate Pudding Day. I didn't bring the chocolate pudding, but I should have. And it's Tropical Cocktails Day. So where's our tropical cocktails era? On this day in history, June 26th, 1498, the toothbrush was invented in China using boar bristles.
Wow.
In 1900, Dr. Walter Reed began research to beat yellow fever. In 1902, June 26th, was the start of Sherlock Holmes' adventure of three Garridebs. And in 1924, the Ziegfeld Follies opened on Broadway. In 1925, The Gold Rush, starring and written by Charlie Chaplin, was released. In 1927, I love this one, the Cyclone roller coaster opened in Coney Island. I was never on that, were you? No, I don't intend to. And in June 26, 1974, the Universal Product Code is scanned for the first time to sell a package of Wrigley's chewing gum at the Marsh Supermarket in Troy, Ohio. We mentioned 1977, June 26th, Elvis Presley sang the last performance of his career. Are You Lonesome Tonight was his very last song. And in 1993, Late Night with David Letterman aired for the last time on NBC. And then, of course, he went to CBS. So those are some interesting trivia things going on for June 26th. And now, before we talk to Zehra Ansari about the amazing Cafe Vivaldi, here's our weekly rhyming wrap-up of the news. Ariana and Pete, well, guess one can never tell. A couple that's dandy, who's that with Miss Grandy, the comic from SNL. Today, Ariana's 25 and glad to be alive. She's moving in with Pete Davidson. Chelsea will be a beehive with buzzing wannabes all caving at the knees, trying not to flaunt and to look nonchalant as they ask for an autograph, please. Mr. Davidson's lucky, methinks. Best to savor, 'cause if he blinks, or if he throws shade, the whole thing could fade. How about some cocktail drinks? Sarah Sanders from White House Press asked to leave a restaurant. I guess the open mind is hard to find amongst liberals. What a mess. We may not all agree, but where's the democracy in asking a guest to leave? At best, it's a bit of hypocrisy. Now Angela's still in a pickle. Are Germans becoming fickle? There's consternation about her immigration policy. Will things trickle? And will she be forced to step down and renounce her German crown? Eins, zwei, drei, we're asking why the country's in a frown. An emergency summit was called in Brussels, and Italy's appalled. Not about wine and cheese, but about refugees. The EU is not enthralled. It's been quite a situation involving immigration, with parents and kids and heavy bids on the heated separation. Now things are looking dim for a second female, Kim. We're not over the moon for Kim Jong-un, but that's just because of him. Now it's because of her. Not to condemn or slur, but the White House, really? Is she touchy-feely? I think I'll go get a liqueur. What's all this about? She said she's not ruling out the presidency. Is she flying with glee? My head is filled with doubt. Despite Travolta's appeal, his new movie, Let's Get Real, it's the Gotti flick, a biopic. It's less than the biggest deal. In fact, it's called a flop, and out of the mob boss crop of films, it's cursed, being called the worst. The critics will never stop. Do the media have a slant? What prompted De Niro to rant? A country divided, becoming one-sided. I think I'll go have some eggplant. Things are happening, 1, 2, 3. In merger land, you see. Time Warner in rhyme has lost the time. It's just Warner and AT&T. It's Warner Productions in name. It's a hyphenated game. What about CNN? I'll start doing Zen. Will Spectrum and Charter stay the same? We need a global genie. I'm in the mood for some blini. With Russian fever or World Cup believer, I think I'll go get a martini. Let's take a second look at the saga of Peter Strzok. He's invoked some rage with his text to Ms. Page. Where's his scandalous little black book? Subpoenas have been made. Which senators are throwing shade? The deadline is here. Is McCabe in fear? Is Comey feeling betrayed? And what about the DOJ? Hey, it's Tropical Cocktails Day. Turn off the blues. Turn off the news. Now where is my Chardonnay? And that's our little wrap-up of the Week in Rhyme to have some fun with the news instead of the gloom. And now we have to welcome Zehra Ansari to Mia's World. Hi, Zehra.
Hi.
So I've got, a couple of amazing things in association with the cafe. I was actually played there on my recorder, some Vivaldi and some Baroque stuff, and had an incredible wedding reception there, organized totally by Zehra and Mariam, and just an incredibly intimate, beautiful cafe, more than a cafe, much, much more like a sort of a little salon, musical, cafe, cabaret. It had live music, it had open mics, it had soft singer-songwriters, it had louder rock, it had classical, it just covered the waterfront. And so, welcome to you, beautiful Zehra Ansari.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. So let's start at the beginning. Your dad came here from Pakistan in which decade?
In the 70s.
In the 70s. And he's not here. He might have come, but he's not here, unfortunately. But he's so much of a presence now and for the last 35 years. And he loved classical music. So was his family involved with music? Or?
Right. So my grandfather, he organized a music festival in Pakistan. And that was where my dad first had exposure to just to performance itself, but also to the organizing aspect of it, a lot of the behind the scenes. And I think, because my grandfather was such a big supporter and promoter of art and culture, that really left an impression on my dad and his brothers. And it was something that never really went away. And it's funny because my dad has had so many transitions in his lifetime in terms of his career, but I think he always wanted to come back to art and to music and to promoting talented artists and musicians.
So that is definitely a legacy, to leave. Your grandfather absolutely made an impact, and
right.
And what a beautiful impact that is, because really the world is so cold and it's so gloomy at times, and there's such beauty in art and music, and that's the amazing part of that cafe, what he did for New York City, because when he first came, he opened up a magazine store.
Right.
Around the village, right?
Yeah.
On Barrow
and 7th Avenue South.
And from what I read and heard, it was much more than a magazine store. People came and had intellectual conversations.
Right. Yeah. It was kind of the place to be for a little bit.
What was it called?
It was called Parsley Sage after the Simon and Garfunkel song.
What a great name for a magazine store.
Yeah. My dad loved those guys.
Yeah, me too. We should have been playing them.
So it, my father and my uncle, they opened the store, and they had a lot of really wonderful periodicals there, difficult to find publications, and the focus was on art and high culture, and I believe it was open 24/7 if I'm not mistaken, or it was open for most of the day, and my dad would play classical music there, and that was something that drew people in. and my dad and my uncle, they both have such magnanimous personalities, and I think that drew a lot of people to them and to the store, and really, that was when a lot of the regulars, a lot of the patrons were, kind of planted the idea in my dad's head that he needed a physical space to have these conversations and this dialogue, and that he should open up a cafe. And that was kind of where it started. And I've never really asked my dad what in particular, other than that, which I've heard from him. I never really asked him how it all kind of came together. But I know that he was getting a lot of feedback from people that they felt like it was something necessary and something that, would really add a lot of value to the community in the village.
And so he did open it in 1983, because he had the magazine store for over a decade, I think. Right?
Yes, that's right.
Wow. So I wonder what the logistics are, because that's not so easy to just snap your fingers and do. But he did it. And was he married at the time?
No.
So maybe a little easier when you're not married, right?
Yeah.
Because he hadn't started a family yet. But still, an incredible beginning, an incredible embryo of a beautiful thing. So at the beginning, did he play classical music in the cafe?
He did.
He played his own recordings from his collection.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was pretty much. That was pretty much how it started. And, a lot of people, what happened is that a lot of people, there was a revival in interest in classical music in the 80s. And I believe it's called WXQR.
QXR.
WQXR.
I worked there.
Okay. My dad had a strong relationship with them, and they were, they were involved in reviving interest in classical music, and especially in New York. And that was something that people would come to the cafe for to listen, because at that time it wasn't something that was accessible. And I think that what my dad really wanted was to introduce it to the average New Yorker and really get them to be exposed to it and to deeply appreciate it.
Wow. He's got such a great missions,
Right.
And what about his brother? Was he involved as well?
Oh, my dad's brother-in-law, no, he ended up doing something completely different. Not creative, but
so he went on it on his own.
Right, exactly.
Not so easy there,
no,
right?
Yeah.
And so how did it happen that he transitioned, I guess, from the classical music to live music, just playing his own recordings, and then
Right. That was an interesting transition, and it happened in the early 2000s. And I've mentioned this before when we've spoken, but when 9/11 happened, a lot of businesses downtown were affected, including my father's, and that pretty much initiated a complete change in the business model. And so my dad started introducing live music, and then it kind of became 7 days a week and kind of took on a life of its own. My dad had always had music concerts in larger venues, and he was always involved in organizing larger scale music events. And then he kind of
like his father.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And so he kind of brought those two worlds together with this new incarnation of the cafe. And he found some incredibly talented singer-songwriters. And that was kind of how the music scene at Vivaldi developed. And then, we introduced other kinds of music, jazz, opera, what else? Bluegrass, so many different kinds of music. And that was kind of the kernel that started it all.
Yeah, I mean, it's unusual to have so many different kinds of groups. And when I was there at least 2-3 times this week, the last closing week, it's striking to see the regulars who come, who've really devoted so much time and love your father and love the place and the heart of the place, because it's given them such a home.
Right,
to just feel comfortable, have a community of artists, and just they seem so happy just to be there. And
right, absolutely.
it's first of all, just physically, can you describe it? Because
Sure.
it's such a charming place.
Absolutely. Well, when you're standing outside of Vivaldi, it looks quite dark. It looks like a little saloon. And, when you step inside it, I think it kind of has this quality, aesthetic quality that really transports you to a different time. It's very moody, dark room. And there's a brick wall that has roughly 30 or so. How many would you say, Mia?
Pictures?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to look right now, but I would say about 25 to 30 photos. Historic.
There's 25 to 30 photos that take up a whole gallery of space, and they're
some
all...
of those people are, I guess, Joseph Brodsky and Edgar Allan Poe, and
a lot of them are classical composers, writers.
Right. And there's one iconic shot of Bob Dylan
right,
on the other wall.
Exactly. And so, that particular gallery of portraits was part of a set that Woody Allen's production team created in the 90s for Bullets Over Broadway. And that's lived on in the cafe for the last, how many decades? 2.5 decades since then. And it was just an incredible piece of history, and I think what Woody Allen and his set decorators and production staff saw in Vivaldi was just this timeless quality. I don't want to use the word bohemian, but really it was, it just represented this time in, I guess, in this time in history, this quality of creativity, of openness to creativity, and exchanging ideas in a way that was in some ways very idealistic, and I think that's kind of how a lot of people that I've spoken to in my life, and including myself, that's really the way that we've experienced the cafe, and all of the the great conversations that sometimes it feels you can only have in that space, and in that kind of atmosphere that is so open and so welcoming, because often, it kind of can go to either extreme, where it's very forced, or it's, it's manufactured, and it's really hard to feel like you're engaging authentically with people.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You've captured it totally perfectly. I think partly it's just physically, there's a couple of nooks where you've got a table for two against the wall, sort of hidden back against the wall, table for two at the fireplace in the back, a table for four in another side wall. And then there's sort of more communal tables. So it's got that diversity of, if you want more people to sort of engage in, or if you want a private conversation.
Right.
And so it's got that whole mixture. There's two things I do not want to let go. One, I want to talk about the ingenuity of the menu, and two, we must talk about the landlord. So I don't want to forget these things. So let's start with the positive. The menu is amazing, because you've culled from pastry chefs and sources that are very ingrained in the village.
Right. I think my dad always, he has such strong relationships with so many people, so many small business owners, people like him, people older than him, people who've been living in the village for generations. And, he really valued those personal relationships, and it really reflects in the choices he made, even in the menu that he created. Like
handmade pastas from Raffetto's.
Right, exactly.
The bread from
Amy's bread.
Autumanelli.
Right, Autumanelli. A lot of the really, well, some of them have gone away. Like some bakeries and meat shops have disappeared that had been around for many, many years in the village, and there's so few that do remain, and it's. And I've said this before, but when I walk through the village with my dad, I really do see it through his eyes, his relationships with people, because I wouldn't, it's a world that I wouldn't have access to if I were walking on my own. And
right.
it's it's almost
history.
startling in how, it is. And it's almost startling, because it's something that is so, it kind of is representative of a different time, a different sense of the neighborhood,
It's so true. It's fading away in a way. The shop owners and the smaller businesses run by families, and that's what's such a wonderful part of that Cafe Vivaldi. Also, they've got some signature cocktails and that amazing brandy cider, apple cider, and amazing desserts. And pastry chef from Little Italy, I think.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just extraordinary. And what you're talking about, Zehra, with the village fading, the historical and the small business owners sort of dripping away, that totally feeds into the issue of the landlord. Because, well, you can explain. I'll let you explain about what kind of landlord this is that's creating such a loss in the neighborhood.
Right. So our lease and everything, it all changed hands in around 2011, 2012. And pretty much as soon as, the ink was on the paper, we were saddled with a lawsuit with our landlord, and that litigation continued for the last 7 or so years, case after case, drama after drama, and these disputes are kind of, unfortunately, they're a tactic that people like our landlord use to wear down their tenants, right? To just to wear you down, because they have a system. It's like a machine, and they have a very systematic way of handling their tenants, and it's very obvious that the end goal is to evict and then to raise the rent and just kind of try to find new tenants who are going to pay 100 times. Yeah, exactly. Quadruple. Like 100% to 400% sometimes higher rent, and that's pretty much the name of the game in New York now.
Exactly. But the lease was not up yet, right?
No, it wasn't up, but we had a situation where a new lawsuit was filed. How many months ago? 2 months ago, no, I think it was 3 months ago, and it was pretty much downhill from there, and I realize, it gets to a point where there's only so much that you can put up with. There's only so much you can fight, and that's, I think that's a testament to how vulnerable small businesses can be, and how their needs really ought to be protected by the city, and it's I think it's just so necessary to have awareness of how vulnerable small businesses are, and how much they have to offer, how much intrinsic value they have to offer to our communities.
Exactly, and why the city can't step in and preserve something that's so valuable. It's maddening. And not to mention, it's kind of like my mother used to say, it's the law of diminishing returns. How much are you putting in? And it's not worth your losing your health. And your father did have a stroke 2 years ago, and when you and your sister stepped in to help manage the restaurant, and that was a stroke of, no pun intended. That was great fortune that you were able to do that and give up whatever other opportunities you had, which you did have.
Right. Yeah.
I think
it was. I think it was a very quick decision, because we, everything kind of happened overnight, and we really had to step in.
You were supposed to have an internship? Or a job?
Well, I was interviewing at the time, and I ended up not being able to take any offers, and it was like something that just happened at the stroke of midnight, and there was just a business that there's no leadership, and the business is still running, and then people are turning to me, and they're like, what's going on, like, and so pretty much I I realized that I would have to do it, and that only I could probably do it. And unfortunately, in a situation like this, people do want to take advantage of you, and they're trying to, turn things around for them somehow. And I realized that probably the best thing for me to do would be to just jump right in and just do it for my dad.
I'm sure there was not a moment of hesitation.
I think you're right. It was tricky, and there were days and weeks when it was really painful, especially in the beginning, and it wasn't easy for me. I rebelled internally a lot because I knew that I felt like it wasn't what I wanted to do with my life, because I was putting so many other opportunities on hold. But I really did grow into it, and I'm eternally grateful for the time and the things that I've learned I couldn't have learned anywhere else. And so
it was like an apprenticeship almost.
Right. Yeah.
Like
and
a natural flow of an apprenticeship.
Absolutely. And I do
and
feel
for an amazing cause.
Right. Yeah.
And you're part of the history,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You're totally part of that history now. Right.
It was really, an amazing thing in the end, because I don't, I can't imagine having been able to replicate the experiences that I had at Vivaldi and any other opportunity. I wouldn't have compared to in value and in growth and learning and I think that when we're faced with these big challenges in life, I think people say that fools rush in, but I do think that if you just jump right into the saddle, sometimes it can be incredibly rewarding.
I couldn't say it any better than that. And it's almost like it was a gift, to you. Not that your father was sick, but
right.
that there was a pause. It was almost like an enforced pause for him to rest and get better and heal, and for you to sort of jump in and learn all this and meet all these extraordinary artists and musicians.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Who I'm sure you forged many friendships with.
I did, yeah.
And who knows what kind of relationships or business opportunities there will be in the future for you. If people want to go to the website and either sign in or write their comments about Cafe Vivaldi, where should they go?
Absolutely. So our website is CAFFEVIVALDI.com. There's a link on the front of our homepage where you can leave a comment and tell us your story about growing up in the village, about coming to Cafe Vivaldi, whatever it is that you want to share. We've loved reading these stories that people have been sharing, these memories, these really precious memories that people have been opening up with, and we'd really appreciate hearing yours too. And you're more than welcome to reach out to us. We're here to listen and to appreciate with you.
Oh, it's so sweet. I know. I mean, there's, what did Thomas will say? You can't go home again. So it's like you'd love to see another incarnation of Cafe Vivaldi, but you'd never replicate what was there because it was magical.
Right. And I think it's complicated because when something lives on for too long, I think that, it does lose some qualities that it may have had at a different time. And I don't want to name names, but there's places that I go to in the village in Little Italy, and I bet they're trying to hold on really hard to this atmosphere that they probably captured really well 80 years ago or 60 years ago. But sometimes you can't make something, you can't push it too much.
Exactly. You can't just force the issue. And I do want to mention, you don't have to, but I will mention the name of Steve Croman, who's the landlord. But we are just like a monster, and he owns over 140 buildings in New York. He was convicted felon. He's paid $5 million in fines and tax fraud, larceny, and it's unbelievable what a machine can sort of operate with the grease, stoking the wheels. It's insane in this city, really. It's so sad. And, but I guess in some ways, it does let you move on. So
Right.
nothing lasts forever. But that was like a little pearl, a little gem of a place for 35 years. You know, it's funny. I took a picture of those photos in the Cafe Vivaldi. It looks like, is this possible? You're going to have to tell me. It looks like there's 35 or
Oh, my
30.
goodness.
Would that be ironic if it was 35
That is
pictures?
too much.
You have to count them now. And let me know. You have to fact check the photos. But those photos are classic. And, oh, my God, in the winter with the mantle and the fire going, it's just extraordinary place, you know.
Right.
It's almost like a little piece of literary and musical New England, or just a little gem. So the other thing is, I didn't know this, but I read this when the Coen brothers made their film Inside Llewyn Davis about the '60s folk singer. Two of the actors came to the open mic.
Right, they did, and it was Oscar Isaac and Marcus Mumford, and they brought their guitars, and
So
they
cool.
just, you know, they did a couple of covers, and you know, they really why the reason they came was because they wanted to feel what it was like for Bohemian musicians in the '60s and '70s and even in the '80s, being in the village, and you know what it was like to be a musician, a singer-songwriter in that really early time.
Unbelievable. That's so crazy. That must have been quite an amazing moment in time. When
It was,
right?
yeah.
Did you see the film?
I have not seen the film yet. It's on my list. I think I was in school the night that happened, and so I couldn't be there. But
That's okay.
yeah, my dad and his close friends who, you know, they would spend long nights at Vivaldi. They've seen quite some things in their time.
Well, I cannot thank you enough, Zehra Ansari, for being here and for stepping into a golden age of a golden salon Cafe Vivaldi. Thank you to Ishrat and Mariam and Zehra and Rafat. And 32 Jones Street will never be the same for Cafe Vivaldi. But we saw it, we lived it, we loved it, and it was a beautiful time. So we're going to close the show with something in honor of the Cafe Vivaldi, namely a piece by Vivaldi, which your dad loved Vivaldi, right?
He did.
And this is, let me just get the reference. Yes, this is since I play recorder and played recorder at the Cafe Vivaldi, we're combining the two. So this is a beginning of Vivaldi's Recorder Concerto in C major with Maurice Steger on recorder. And thank you again for being part of Mia's world, and thanks to Zehra Ansari and Cafe Vivaldi.
Thanks so much, Mia.
My pleasure.
Voted #1 jazz cabaret club by New York Magazine, the Metropolitan Room is one of the most critically acclaimed venues in New York City and is known as the home for big-name talents and rising stars. Known as a celebrity hangout, the Metropolitan Room is a high-end cabaret and jazz club and brings the best in live music to New York City every night of the week. Fabulous award-winning Broadway, TV, film, and radio performers take the stage in an intimate 115-seat elegant venue. Aside from the great, highly professional artistic shows and audience, Metropolitan Room provides an exceptional appetizer and dessert menu as well as exotic